everyone, the Ioniq guy here again. Today I'm going to be doing a comparison between my 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5 SEL all-wheel drive with my girlfriend's 2021 Hyundai Kona Electric SEL front-wheel drive. She got hers last July and she loves it. And this was the first full electric that I had ever driven, and it's been a terrific experience. Fantastic range, fantastic efficiency, decent size for one or two people, maybe a small family. The Kona Electric was not built on an all-electric platform. It was built to share a platform with the Kia Niro, and that also is a plug-in hybrid, a regular hybrid, and obviously an all-electric. The size difference between these two cars is pretty significant. The Ioniq 5 has a 3-meter wheelbase. The Ioniq 5 is also built on a fully electric, brand new platform called eGMP. So these two cars share almost nothing in common. The Ioniq 5 is an 800-volt architecture, and the Kona is a 400-volt architecture. The Kona Electric charges at a maximum speed of 75 kilowatts, whereas the Ioniq 5 charges at a maximum speed of over 200, closer to 240 kilowatts. So the Ioniq 5 can charge 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, and the Kona takes closer to 45 minutes. I would not want to take the Kona on a road trip, whereas the Ioniq 5 I would road trip any day of the week. Despite it not charging quickly, this car makes up for it with outstanding efficiency and outstanding range for a car in its price range. My girlfriend easily gets 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and in the warmer weather she can do over 300 miles, no problem. The Kona Electric has a 64 kilowatt hour battery, while the Ioniq 5 has a 77.4 kilowatt hour usable battery. Because the Ioniq 5 is built on a dedicated electric platform, the battery is nestled up into the undercarriage, so it doesn't stick down and protrude like it does in the Kona. You can see in the Kona Electric that the battery sticks down about 3 inches, which gives you significantly less ground clearance than in the Ioniq 5. And that's because this platform was designed to be a hybrid, plug-in hybrid in the Kia Niro. So that battery had to go somewhere, and that somewhere is below the frame of the vehicle. So right here you can see the recent efficiency of the Kona Electric, and you can see there's some high 3-mile days, a 4, some low 3s. Bear in mind that this is driving in 30-degree temperatures, 20-degree temperatures, not warm weather. So these efficiency numbers are very impressive. Her efficiency over the last 3,000 miles, the average is 3.8 miles per kilowatt hour. That's very impressive. So you can see some efficiency numbers for me over the last few trips. And I currently have 1706 on the odometer, and the trip since I bought the car, 1,619 miles. My average is 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour. So compared to the Kona, pretty significantly less. Granted, I also have really been taking advantage of the 450 pound-feet of torque and haven't been using the accelerator gingerly. So take that with a grain of salt, but 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour is what I'm averaging. And because the Kona Electric was built on an internal combustion platform, we don't see a frunk up here. Here in the Ioniq 5, we do have a small frunk where you can put the tire mobility kit and tire inflator. It's not much, but I'd rather have these up front than out in the back in the trunk. I know this is the 2021 model, but there's not a significant difference between this and the 2022 that is just starting to hit dealer lots in the spring of 2022. They have lowered the price because of that car now. This car was priced fairly similarly to the Ioniq 5. So they lowered the starting price of the Kona Electric to about $37,000. But that's before any incentives, the federal incentive and whatever state incentives you might get where you live. So out the door, you could get this thing for under $30,000. And for a car that gets over 300 miles and really good efficiency, I think it's a no-brainer. If that's what your budget is, this is what I would go for. It has a small little 7-inch touchscreen, single zone climate control, but it does have the driver only setting, which is nice. Shift by wire, heated seats. The seats in here are heather gray, and then the side bolsters are black. The only knock about this cabin that I really have is it feels very cheap. Everything is hard, scratchy plastic. Even the driver's elbow rest is hard plastic. So the biggest issue I have with the Kona Electric is the back seat legroom. The front seat is currently adjusted for me at 6'2", and you can see I can't put my knees even close together. Now we're here in the Ioniq 5, and the interior of the Ioniq 5 is leaps and bounds nicer than the Kona. Better technology, better materials. This is all soft touch, nice padding. And keep in mind, this is the mid-trim. This doesn't apply to the SE model. Seats are just as comfortable as in the Kona, I would say, if not a little bit more. The SEL Kona does not have adjustable lumbar, while the Ioniq 5 does. The amount of space that you have in here is significantly more than in the Kona. I mean, it's just very spacious, very open, very airy. It's a nice place to be. So now I'm in the back of the Ioniq 5, and in comparison to the Kona Electric, I have significantly more knee room, more foot room. This is just a much more comfortable place to be. Very spacious, easy to move around. The materials in the back here follow the front. Nice soft touch, air vents, USBs. I could spend a few hours back here on a road trip, no problem. Very comfortable. The seats in the back also recline. And they can be moved forward and backward to allow for more space in the trunk. Just a quick little comparison in the size of the back doors. The Ioniq 5 rear door is almost 48 inches long. the rear door on the Kona is 37 inches long. So the back seat of the Ioniq 5 really benefits from that 3-meter wheelbase. Another area where the Ioniq 5 really has the Kona Electric outpaced is in storage practicality. So I have here a standard 22-inch roller bag, and you can see how that fits. Standing up, fits no problem. Even that direction, I could probably get 5 of them. So the dimensions here in the Ioniq 5 are about 38 inches deep, about 41 inches from wheel well to wheel well, and about 29 inches of vertical clearance. And now with the load floor removed, we now have an extra almost 4 inches of vertical height available to us. Now with the rear seats reclined as vertically as they go and pushed all the way forward, you could even fit a 22-inch roller bag right in that space right there. You could fit probably 3 in that space. With the seats fully forward, you now have about 44 inches of depth, and vertically you have about 33 inches. This is a really nice trunk, very versatile, lots of space. Here in the Kona, space is a little limited. Here's the 22-inch roller bag, and you can see that it actually protrudes a little bit past. So let's see if it closes. It'll close. So you could fit maybe 4 or 5 roller bags back here. This doesn't hold a candle to the Ioniq 5 though. They do give you a nice cargo area light, even though it's incandescent. Unfortunately, the seats in the Kona Electric only fold flat. There's no reclining. You've got about 28 inches of depth back here. In terms of overall width, you have about 40 inches. Height-wise, you got about 27.5 inches of vertical height. Underneath the load floor, you got a very shallow styrofoam pan, and then underneath that you have your fix-a-flat and charging cable. With the seats fully folded, you get a fairly flat load floor. From the back of my seat, about 56 inches. Back in the Ioniq with the seats folded flat, it is cavernous. From the back of my seat, I've got about 71.5 inches of depth. So looking at the cars purely from a side-by-side perspective, the front overhangs are very similar. I have the cars parked right next to each other with their mirrors aligned. And you can see they're similarly shaped. And now you can really see the difference in length. The Ioniq 5 has easily 1.5 feet more length versus the Kona Electric. The height difference between the two cars is not very significant, but back here from this perspective, you can really get an idea of just how much wider the Ioniq 5 is versus the Kona. has a much wider stance. In terms of height, the Ioniq 5 is about 63 inches. The Kona has a height of about 60 inches, maybe 61. The step-in height in the Kona is about 15 inches. The step-in height of the Ioniq 5 is about 16.5 inches. The Kona Electric does have a manual released charge port, but it has a nice light around it. It's got gaskets, a battery indicator. It does get a good amount of snow buildup on it though in the winter months. The Ioniq 5 has an electric actuated charge port door with charging indicator. There is something to be said about a traditional, easy-to-use door handle. So now we're in the Kona Electric. We're going for a little drive. So you heard there the front wheels chirping. This car has so much torque, and it being only delivered to the front wheels is a shame. If this thing had all-wheel drive, it'd be awesome. I like the feel of the steering wheel. It's on the smaller side, but it feels nice. No need to even touch the brakes. You can almost one pedal drive this car. It just won't come to a complete stop. We're about to go into some twisty turny roads here, so I'm going to bump it into sport mode for maximum enjoyment. It's definitely not the quietest cabin. There's a lot of road noise coming through. That might be chalked up to the tires, though. It's nicely planted in the corners, but those front tires, they just want to spin so much. If you put some summer sport tires on this thing and had a little bit more grip, that would be ideal. But it's well mannered in the turns. And that's the benefit of having that battery so low. I got the car in eco mode now. The accelerator is very dulled, as you would expect in eco mode. You don't want to be punching the go pedal. But it still retains all of its speed. The suspension is definitely on the firmer side. Go back into sport mode for merging on the highway. Let's punch it. The roads are a little wet too, so that definitely doesn't help. under 72. When you go into sport mode, regen is automatically set to level 1. Now, this being the base model of the car, you don't have any adaptive systems on the highway. You don't have adaptive cruise control or lane centering. It does have lane departure warning, but that's about all you're going to get on the highway. At highway speeds, it's not the quietest. You might get sick of the tire noise after a while. It does have auto hold. When you come to a complete stop, you can then take your foot off the brake pedal. So we're now taking the Ioniq 5 out for a quick ride so you guys can see how this drives. So in the Ioniq 5, I have I-pedal, which is basically one pedal driving. So right there, no need to move my foot from the go pedal to the brake. Just comes to a nice smooth stop once you get the hang of it. Now obviously this car has significantly more power than the Kona Electric, but in everyday driving, you're not going to be using all the power in this car. What you're really going to be benefiting from is the all-wheel drive system, which I know the horsepower is tied to that because there's a second motor, but having that extra traction really makes a huge difference. We're going to take the exact same route as we did in the Kona, just to have an apples-to-apples comparison. So we're about to hit the twisties here. I'm going to put it in sport mode. The cabin is noticeably quieter than the Kona. This car also has the insulated front glass, so that definitely helps. And I'm hoping that it's coming through, but I'm hoping you can tell the difference in ambient noise coming through into the cabin. This car's like a coffin compared to the Kona. And the instant torque, I mean, the Kona has it too, but here it's being sent through two motors, so you're not getting any of that annoying wheel spin that you're getting with the front wheel drive Kona. The car definitely drives bigger. It feels a lot bigger. The suspension is definitely tuned more towards the comfort side of things, even in sport mode. This doesn't have any active damping or anything, so it's not tied with whatever mode you have it in. But just as well planted in the corners, nice and level. The steering wheel in the Ioniq 5 is thicker than in the Kona, so if you have big hands, this steering wheel definitely feels more to size. Let's go into eco mode. The eco pedal in this car seems Pretty similar to the Kona. It's just as dull and unresponsive. At least in the lower band of the pedal travel, I'd say the first 50% of the pedal is pretty much non-existent, but once you push it past 75%, then you can get your speed up a little more quickly. So we're about to get back on the highway, so we'll go back into sport mode, and oof, and it throws you back in your seat. There's 72. Now this car, unlike the Kona, at least the Kona in the base trim, has active steering and also adaptive cruise control. So right now on the highway I can take my hands off the wheel until it yells at me to not do that. Let's see how long we can go. You can also do lane changes. You just have to keep your hand on the wheel. I find it works pretty well. There are times when it'll hug one side of the lane more than I would prefer, and sometimes turns can be a little difficult for it to navigate, but on pretty straight highway driving it does a decent job. And what I do like about their highway driving assist too, you can engage the auto lane centering and the adaptive cruise control separately from one another. So if you want one or the other, you can do that. This car really soaks up bumps much better than the Kona. So if you're looking for a cushy ride, the Kona is a little bit on the firmer side. I would go with the Ioniq 5 over the Kona if you like comfort. So there is somewhat of an overlap in the prices of these two cars, but I think each one has its own use case. And for the Ioniq 5, I think for a young family, somebody looking to tow, somebody looking to haul a lot of passengers around, somebody who might want to go camping on the weekends, and somebody who wants all-wheel drive, the acceleration and sportiness that comes with that, and also the added security of traveling in inclement weather. It's also just a bigger car, and it's much more comfortable. So if you're a larger person, I think the Ioniq 5 is definitely the better option of the two. And the Kona Electric is also a fantastic electric car. Its efficiency and range are awesome, and I think it's a real value deal at the new price point of $34,000 for the 2022 model year. I think it would be a good car for a young professional, empty nesters, people who aren't hauling their kids around anymore and just making runs to the grocery store and doing some errands. It can't tow, unfortunately, but it's also a smaller car, so keep that in mind. So if you want to put anybody in the back seat, it's pretty limited. And for road trips, you're not going to get that super fast charging that you see in the Ioniq 5. But at the end of the day, I'm more than thrilled with my Ioniq 5, and I wouldn't trade it for a Kona any day of the week. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. If you'd like to see some more comparison testing between the Ioniq 5 and the Kona Electric, leave a comment down below and let me know what you're interested in. As always, thanks for watching. Take care.